Well, on a week where Australia's number one trending hashtag was poo jogger, the whole thing came to a screaming and ugly halt yesterday afternoon at the end of the long weekend at the MCG. We'll get straight into that and a whole lot of other things right here on the Variety Hour podcast. I'm Sergio Paradise, and here he is, the great man himself, Titus O'Reilly.
Oh, I mean, we're recording this from a very dark place, you and I.
It's
been a tough 24 hours.
It's not just dark emotionally, it's dark physically.
I think I said in my column today, I no longer care if the knee-jerk, in the knee-jerk reaction today, I said I no longer care if the North Korean-American summit goes pear-shaped, because I just want it all to be over.
And should we point out that while at the exact time we're recording this, the summit in Singapore has just begun.
This podcast has more chance of solving those problems than those two do.
You know they're having it in... Have you ever been to Sentosa in Singapore?
No, I've been to Singapore, but I don't know if I've been to Sentosa.
Sentosa has some of the world's great beach bars, which are...
Oh, right.
You can get a bucket of Coronas for $10 before lunch. That's
really?
why I reckon Trumpies held it there.
Right, okay.
It's a good spot, Sentosa. And as you say, it's happening as we speak, but ours will probably...
What a surprise that you know the bars even in Singapore. It's no surprise at all. We should start by thanking our supporters who basically make this podcast run. And big thank you to everyone who came. So I did 2 shows last week.
How'd you go in Adelaide?
Great. Well, I did Melbourne Wednesday night, which was really fun. And then I did... and watched sort of State of Origin straight after at a pub near there, and then went over to Adelaide and did Adelaide. Adelaide was great fun.
I saw you got a very good review on Twitter from a punter.
Oh, well, that's what I paid them to do. I said, I'll buy you a beer if you write something nice on Twitter.
At the Arca Bar? How's the Arca Bar going?
Oh, the Arca Bar is Arca Bar.
I love the Arca Bar in Adelaide.
It's always, because it's cold chisel history there.
And the decor there reminds me of one of Daryl Summers' jumpers.
It was absolutely packed. It was great fun. The crowd was really into it. And Adelaide's just... I think I've said this before, but because Adelaide's based on 2 teams and they both give it to each other all the time, they're very into that, you know, so they were good. It was good fun.
Excellent.
And then, so we had a weekend of footy. We'll go through a lot of that. But one of the things that was... I'll start off on a semi... positive and serious note was the big freeze again. Yeah. It gets bigger every year.
When they said a couple of weeks ago that they're getting all 18 coaches, I thought, geez, it's going to be hard to top next year.
Yeah.
And you know, I was there at the MCG yesterday, and they did do it well. I got to say,
it's always good. They it's one of those rare charity things that is both like it's incredibly entertaining. It has resonated with people.
Everybody puts their hand up for it.
You know, and you can be... We are the most cynical people in the world, but it actually is one of the rare really good things, you know?
And look, and it's going to be probably more difficult next year, because I remember saying last year, and I'm mighty glad that I was wrong, at least by 12 months, that it's going to be real hard when Neil Danaher reaches that point where he can't be the spokesperson or figurehead for it. And he suggested that this year might be his last one doing so. Right. He may not be able to speak next year, which would be awful.
Because the Queen's birthday long weekend, it doesn't mean anything to anyone.
No.
It's not Easter. It's not, when you have, say, even the Melbourne Cup weekend or even the grand final long weekend down Victoria. Victorians, all our public holidays are based on sporting events. But, you know, even the Labor weekend's based roughly on it's based on a movement event people think about. But there's nothing to the Queen's birthday one, and
it's
so
just simply
it's not like
Anzac
Day or anything like that. So when you have this kind of event that's come around it, and it's kind of an amazing thing.
It was only the 4th one this year.
Yeah, but it's already become a huge thing, and often because the game isn't that good.
Yeah.
Or into the past hasn't been good and hasn't meant anything or much. Yeah. It sort of hasn't been that important. So it was a really good day. I thought the coaches all did a pretty good job.
Yeah.
It was... Who did you like the best out of all of them?
I did quite enjoy the Scott twins doing
dressed as each other.
Dressed as each other. I mean, it's a fairly predictable one, I guess, when you look at it, but they did handle it pretty well.
And I'm sure they've done that many times.
Oh, of course they have. I know the Phoebe brothers who used to play for Melbourne. They used to do it in the most bizarre of circumstances. Let me put it that way.
Right, okay.
I'm not suggesting the Scott brothers have ever gone down that path, but I knew it was going to be a bad day for Melbourne when Simon Goodwin came out dressed like a skier from Mount Buller. I thought, a stereotypical sight gag. We're in for a shocker today.
Yeah, this could really go pear-shaped. Yeah. Talking of the game, it was it was everything you've come to expect from Melbourne, unfortunately, if you're a Melbourne supporter. And look, I thought Collingwood looked...
They played pretty well.
Collingwood played really well, and I thought they deserved the win by a mile, and they were the better team by a mile. And where Melbourne players have talked and have been seen have a lot of upside potential, Collingwood players actually did what the Melbourne players talk about, what they're going to do. And I can't figure out what Melbourne were doing, because usually they've been high scoring, but they just seemed to not play defensively for the whole game. It was bizarre.
Look, everyone's saying that Brodie Grundy touched up Max Gawn, but I reckon around the ground that the hit outs, they're pretty much square. I thought Gawn got a lot of them.
Oh, no, I thought Grundy's a great player and played really well. I didn't think Gawn was disgraced or anything. His midfield,
he was the best player up till half time.
The midfield were just horrendous.
We could not buy centre clearance, even though Gawn was winning half of them. I mean, you look at the midfield. Oliver got plenty of it, but they're all pretty much ineffective. Jones had the fumbles like I've never seen him. Yeah. Brayshaw didn't get enough of it.
Brayshaw looked lost.
Yeah, he looked lost. There are Bernie Vince. I mean, he's not strictly a midfielder anymore, but a number of times he was 20 metres off the contest. It was like he couldn't keep up.
But it was it's like those it's like once the midfield's not functioning, the pressure on the back line becomes huge. It means the opposition can run off you a lot better.
And the Melbourne half-forward line were smashed by Collingwood. And half of Collingwood, a number of times, especially in that first half when they jumped out in front, they were scoring goals by carrying the ball through the middle almost unopposed, which is what Melbourne like to do. Yeah. But Collingwood were doing it just rebounding off their half-back line.
Oh, yeah. The ease of which every time Melbourne... I mean, they weren't horrendous the whole day. There were patches where you saw they were able to start to do what they wanted to do. And I thought, if they can keep this up, what they did is every time they'd get a goal or two in a row and it started to look like they're back in, they would then give away one or two very easy goals.
Every time they were
which
challenged.
Collingwood, to their credit, just always took. They took all their opportunities.
They did.
But then there are other moments where Collingwood was on top of them as well. Yeah. So it just, whenever they did the hard work to almost get back into it. Yeah. The worrying thing for Melbourne, first just on Collingwood, it's hard to calibrate where they are because they've brought in young players that are obviously a lot better than people had thought. Yeah. And there are other players who weren't playing that well. They're just clicking well. So how good are they? Well, you don't really know, but they're obviously not terrible. Melbourne, you look at and just go, you've beaten really average sides. Yeah. But in terms of, you haven't got any major scalps this year at all. Most worrying, on the MCG, they're 2-4.
2-4. Okay.
Yeah, and one of those wins was against North. Which is not bad. The other was against Carlton. Yeah, so it's not like it's which is almost, so you could almost argue that they're 1-4 on because that doesn't. So when you look at it, on the G, and this is what I was most worried about, because not only are they 1-4 or 2-4 on the G, but they just lost to Geelong, in fairness. Yeah. But they got belted by Hawthorn, they got belted by Richmond, and now they've been belted by Collingwood. Yeah. So when you look at their actual form, and we said this previously, we haven't been as much on the bandwagon because I just haven't seen them do it on the big stage at the MCG against a good side yet. Yeah.
And it was the classic Melbourne yesterday of, here's your opportunity to, on the big stage, to make a statement. Yeah. Everybody says you're front runners and you haven't done anything yet to deserve this, premiership contender kind of thing. Yeah. Here's your chance. And being Melbourne, and this is not just being a negative Melbourne supporter. We've seen it so many times.
But it's not negative because it's just reality.
We've seen this a million times. And again, it happened yesterday.
But you knew, the thing every Melbourne supporter will tell you is, in those big games, it seems, we're just never on. So even if we'd lost yesterday, the problem was, what they kicked the first 5 goals or something, you know, or some ridiculous.
One all, then they kicked the next 4.
That's right. So you're looking at it just going,
here we go.
We are just not on. Like, this is just...
It was round 23 last year. They kicked the first 5.
Yeah, and then, you know, and then we almost pegged them back, basically. Yeah. You know, well, this is a bit better. But then they exhaust them. And, you know, so anyway, it's just... It's... Yeah.
And they couldn't handle the pressure yesterday. It was classic Melbourne of handball, turnover. It happened time and again yesterday, not being able to handle the pressure and not being clean with their hands.
And why are they always in these games that everyone's hyped, seem shocked by the pressure?
Yeah, exactly. Collingwood came out to play and to put pressure on the ball carrier, and they did it beautifully.
And the problem is, like, yeah, other teams can do it. So Collingwood did it. Collingwood looked like we are set for this game.
And I've got to say, I mean, Simon Goodwin's done a good job this year, but I still tend to think when things are going bad, he doesn't make enough moves or move. The only thing he did yesterday that really worked was to just put Tom McDonald at full forward and leave him there.
Well, McDonald was the best of the lot, I thought.
But Mason Cox from Collingwood, who was just fantastic yesterday, he took half his marks, one out against Joel Smith, who's a foot shorter than him.
I know.
You know, and
that was a matchup problem because who else are you going to really put on him? Like, the only alternative I could think of was you move McDonald down, Tom McDonald down to play on him or something. But I mean, that was just a matchup. But part of that also just came because the ball was just pinging out of the midfield, so it's 1-on-1 all the time to Mason Cox. You know, who's improved immensely.
And I've got to say, I've never met Mason Cox and only seen him on telly. But he does seem like a really good bloke.
Well, I don't like him now because of yesterday. Matt Gonhans wrote in, I was in Melbourne for the weekend and went to the Queen's birthday game. To catch my flight back to Perth, I had to leave halfway through the last quarter. Does that make me an honorary D's fan?
Oh, I think you can back that one in, Matt. I'll tell you what, you weren't the first D or the only D supporter leaving halfway through the last quarter yesterday.
It was interesting because they opened the gates at the normal time for a 3:20 game, which I think was 1:30. Yeah. But the big freeze started at 2. So everyone gets there really early, thinking, let's go in so we can watch the big freeze. But they're only opening the gates half an hour. So the chaos outside.
Well, the members, MCC members, they opened at 1.
No, I know they do, but the rest of the great. So it's just the scenes were just absolutely.
It was
chaotic, and you're just like, how are they not thinking these things through?
Well, we was queued up at the members there, and we were good at least 100 metres back from the gates.
Yeah.
When they opened the gates, so it took us
at 1.
Yeah. And it took us, a good half an hour to get that 100 metres, and there's still another 100 metres behind us.
Yeah.
But we got in, finally got a seat in the members just, and then looked around and thought, geez, there's nobody here. I know it's going to fill up.
But what? Yeah.
But at this point,
how long? So you got in at about 1:30.
About 1:30.
So you were half. So when and then at what time do you reckon it was really full?
Well, the big freeze started at 2:05. It was supposed to start at 2:00, and it was gradually filling up. And by the time that big freeze was over, it was pretty chock-a-block.
Yeah, but a lot of people I know missed a bit of the big freeze. It's just madness.
Crazy.
I mean, considering the big freeze is like a big event, it's not like just the pre-game entertainment. Dan Taylor wrote in, no question from me, I just can't wait to hear how bitter you are.
Dan, I don't think the bitterness has overwhelmed us yet.
I don't know, I was pretty bitter yesterday. I'm very bitter. Because, I mean, Collingwood fans are going to love this. For all the things, Melbourne have been hyped. They look like they got all these stars that people talk about. I mean, from the Petrarca to the Brayshaw to Oliver to Hogan, all these young guns supposedly. And then you have Collingwood, who have been a joke, and Buckley's a terrible coach, and all their players are horrendous. They've got Chris Mayne playing for them, all this stuff. That's the narrative going in, right? So if you're a Pie supporter, you should be the happiest you can almost be outside of the finals because, it's just, you've turned that on its head, proved it's nonsense, and no one, and for Melbourne supporters, it's the reverse.
Yeah.
I was like, when are you just once in my lifetime going to make you go, oh, I'm proud of them. Well done. Like, we was all against you, blockbuster. Everyone doubted us. We always let you down, and you didn't let me down for once.
And then you look at yesterday and you see Lyndon Dunn.
And Jeremy Howe.
Yeah, they were fantastic.
Two of the
yesterday.
key reasons they smashed us at half forward.
Exactly. And then you look down the other end and you go, gee, Collingwood, they're missing, Jamie Elliott and Moore and that. And then you got this Will Hoskin Elliott who just pops up and kicks a lazy 4 or 5.
Yeah.
I mean, they were terrific yesterday. And De Goey, how good's De Goey?
I know, but it did not, it was not missed that, and I never liked getting rid of Howe. I didn't think was going to become as good as he's become as Collingwood. I was less worried about Howe at the time, so there's a bit of hindsight now. But Dunn, I was always surprised, and that started under Neeld. I was always surprised, but I think I'm trying to remember whether we left under the start of Rouge period. Yeah. But Dunn, I always thought Dunn was a really very solid sort of second or third defender,
and never been your flashy type, but
I always liked Dunn.
When he was at Melbourne, he had plenty of scalps under his hand. Where you say, "Oh, Lyndon Dunn, he kept so and so to a goal."
I didn't get why you just throw him on the scrap heap. I didn't get that move. So seeing them both play really well. So that's why I'm saying if you're a Melbourne supporter, you should be really bitter because not only was it two of our old players doing this, but all our supposed potential was just proven to be just words. And
perfect example of that, a Melbourne supporter I saw on Twitter last night, she said, is Christian Petrarca going to forever be one of those guys who's about to break out and have a big game?
Yeah.
He just seems to, every week, Petrarca, he's about to break out and have a big game. It's a good question because, again, yesterday there was a couple of times he went for the ball one-handed and, he got the ball quite a few times, but again, he was pretty ineffective.
See, Hogan was pretty bad, but I don't know whether that was just because of when the ball's going the other way the whole time and he just, But, the only two in the team that I kind of came away with a lot of faith in for future start is Tom McDonald and Oliver are still obviously guns.
Oh, absolutely.
Because when it was all going against, they were still good.
I was thinking too yesterday that a lot of Melbourne's youngsters who they've brought in this year, they're all due for a bad one.
Actually, Spargo was very good in that second quarter.
Yeah, but then he made a couple of fumbles. Guys like Spargo and Fritsch was pretty good yesterday. But, Hannon, these guys, they're all due for a bad one and they all put it forward yesterday. I know he still hasn't been able to even get a kick at Casey, but Jaden Hunt, they are missing his run off the half-back line. And I still reckon there's room for Garlett in that forward line.
Steve Wixon wrote in, as Melbourne supporters, as the return of an overwhelming feeling of shame and disappointment feel more like a hug from an old friend or a well-worn pair of slippers.
He's implying that it's something we're very familiar with.
It doesn't need to imply it, we are. Mike Costello wrote, whose hamstrings are shakier, Chris Fagan's or Daniel Wells?
Well, you'd have to say Fagan's because
he probably ripped the tendon right off the bone.
I mean, he did go over, and surely.
If people didn't see, this was he went down the slide into the ice
and
bath.
When he was climbing
out of the ice bath, he fell over.
But he's taken it off the bone, so
Brisbane can't take a trick.
He'll be out for a while. Well, Daniel Wells, I don't think it was even his hamstring. This is where Channel 7 come into their own. Immediately, Daniel Wells goes down. And Channel 7 commentators immediately, he's done his hamstring. Wells, injury-prone Daniel Wells, he's done his hamstring. And then another 7 commentator, I think it's his ankle. And then not one of them say, why don't we just wait and see what the doctor says, Pat? He's gone for the day, Daniel Wells. Yeah. And then, of course, he came back in the last quarter and starred.
Yeah, so, I know. They do cover themselves in glory. Talking of Queensland footy, Gold Coast, this was a weird... I mean, people were talking about congestion being the problem this year. The problem is the one-sided games.
Yeah.
The difference between... I mean, congestion to me is not the major problem.
I had this game on the other night, and about halfway through the second quarter, I actually turned around and said aloud to no one, why have I even got this on?
So this is Gold Coast and playing the Giants.
Yeah.
There was only about there was 7,131 people there, which is probably high. They probably amped those up.
So I reckon the AFL do this. They think, what's a number we can probably get away with saying?
I actually reckon the crowd numbers are are fairly accurate, overall. And I think because that is just a nothing crowd. I mean, that's a terrible crowd. And, the funny thing, Gold Coast are weird because the week before they had 17,000 at the game against, I think it was Geelong.
Yeah.
So they actually get bigger crowds than GWS, but they're such a basket case in every other way. They lost by 108 points, and if anyone saw this game, they were as bad as you can basically be. They
disinterested.
Completely. I think Tom Lynch had 9 touches.
Yeah, didn't kick a goal.
He's gone. I mean,
he's coming back.
I don't have any inside information, but looking at him, you're just going, well, why would he stay? But the thing I think about the Suns is this is where the AFL. God, they're really doing my head in at the moment, the AFL, because they keep talking about like AFLX, China and India, all these like committees they're setting up, all this just nonsense. Meanwhile, they've spent hundreds of millions of dollars on the Gold Coast Suns. They've let Brisbane die on the vine up there. They've let GWS have, hardly have secured anything. Yeah. And Tasmania's
still banging on the door,
annoyed as anything. Well, I'm even just grassroots footy in Tasmania is in trouble, and instead they're doing all this other stuff.
Yeah, we're going to go to China.
Yeah, we're going to go, and you're like, guys, just focus on your core business first. Like, if your core business is flying, then yes, go and do all this other stuff. But they're just spread so thin on doing 1,000 different things in there. Like they think they're like an ideas factory. Like let's just have ideas and throw them out
your
there
own
and
backyard.
Exactly. Like
done
I
first.
mean, I always thought, look, to me, 2 teams in Sydney makes sense to an extent because it's such a big market. I always thought 1 team for Queensland is enough at this stage because it's not like the Bears is selling out every week or something. And so I just look at it and just go, what are
they haven't done even since when they were the Bears.
That's right. So, the Bears and them. So I look at it and go, what are they actually doing? Like, what is that? What are they doing? It's just bizarre. Now, the other thing that I think, what are they doing is they knew, the AFL, that the Suns would not be able to play at home for the first half of the season, right? Because of the Commonwealth Games.
Yeah, that didn't sort of just sneak up on anyone.
Yeah, so I actually have some. While I'm pretty harsh on how they played it on the weekend and the way it's been run over the amount they've squandered of money and talent up there is huge and is a disgrace. And how, the Mike Fitzpatrick, Andrew Demetriou era, to me, when you look at the failure of these expansion teams and the Essendon saga, I mean, the only thing they can point to as a positive is they brought in a lot of money through TV rights. Yeah. At a time where TV rights are booming around the world. Like, that's their one thing that they always pointed to.
And that's everything else. That's the one thing that any sporting administrator can put their hand on.
Like, name me a sporting competition of any size of stature that's not gone up in the So taking credit for that, like you're some genius, I mean, that's the minimum.
And they've all gone up over the last few years because there are so many more like channels and digital ways to consume your sport, whether it's on your iPad or your phone. And so it's at that point that anybody could sell it for more than it was ever worth.
That's right. Like, so it's gone up record across every sport, right? So when I look at all that, I go, well, then they've set up this. Then even this year, while they're running around doing AFLX and all this nonsense that no one's asked for or particularly wants, they let the Gold Coast Suns play no home games because of the Com Games. Now, maybe that was unavoidable. Instead of then scheduling them games at the Gabba and various other things, they insist on sending them to China. Yeah. They send them to Ballarat. They send them to
home game in Perth.
They had a home game in Perth, so they spent 2 weeks in Perth. They lived in Perth for that fortnight, lost both games. Like,
talk about punishing.
There's if any other AFL club got told they had to do that.
Imagine if they said to Collingwood, "Oh, by the way, your first 11 games, we're going to
won't play at the MCG.
We're going to shuffle you everywhere we feel like going.
Yeah,
we're going to spend a fortnight
any other club.
Perth.
It's just amazing that that they've let that, and then they go, oh, I wonder why they're not very good. And I'm not saying they weren't, and this is a team that already wasn't very good. Like, they should have scheduled them every second week, like home games, but just at the Gabba.
There's a lot of people saying, I mean, what are your thoughts? There's a lot of people saying, look, it may be reasonably early days, but we can safely say already that the Gold Coast experiment has not worked. Pack up the whole kit bag move them to Tassie or do something. Although Tony Cochrane, the CEO of Gold Coast, I think came out just this morning, and he was pretty bullish about the whole thing. He came out swinging at all their critics, which is that's his job, sure.
Yeah.
But I don't know. On one hand, I think, gee, is it too early to write them off? They've still got some good players up there with some decent recruiting, with maybe some extra draft picks. They might be good. Or do I think, you know what? It's never going to work up there. Nothing has ever worked on the Gold Coast. It's the ghost of the old Grundy's theme park at the end of Cavill Avenue, you know.
The only thing I would say if I was having to make the argument for Gold Coast is the fact that their crowds are a lot better, if not double and often more, what GWS is.
That's true.
So GWS on the field have had a much better management of their list and all these various things, but are in some ways a bigger basket case than the Suns are off the field. Yeah. So when people say no one in the Gold Coast wants to go watch sport, you actually look at the Gold Coast Suns crowds and you go, they're actually considering how bad they've been. And I know there's a lot of ex-Victorians that will go to watch, you know, the other teams, their own team when they're up there. So that attracts a fair few people. But that's the one thing I would say, you know, like if you forget, I mean, it's outrageous that there isn't more of a focus on how badly mismanaged that team has been since it came in, and all the, and then so you look at the GWS, they get a tick on the field in their administration that, but in terms of winning hearts and minds, you'd actually say in some ways the Giants are in a much worse position.
Well, I'll tell you what,
because
Tony Cochrane,
they had 7,131 people. Now it was against the Suns and all that, but that's a nothing game.
Nobody cares,
that's a.
Well, Tony Cochrane made the point this morning too. He said, you know, everyone can point the finger at us and you know, sledges, and that's all well and good. He said what they don't see, and again, this is sort of a long-term sort of view.
Yes.
He said what they don't see is the 10,000 kids playing Auskick here on the Gold Coast that 4 years ago we used to get 800.
Yeah.
And that's great. And I know just through friends who live up there that there is a bit of a groundswell amongst kids up there and parents who are, and long-time Queensland parents who are more happy to put their kids into Auskick than junior rugby league, for example. Yeah. But that will take a long time. And it doesn't matter how many kids are in Auskick. There's not too many out of.
But I don't think anyone
who ever make the big league.
I don't think. I think Tasmania should have a team. I don't think anyone's like is seriously saying, "Oh, we should shut it down and move it to Tassie." I mean, people say that flippantly. Like I've said that as a joke, and then you say, "But Tasmania actually want an AFL team, so why'd they want the Suns?" You know, like. So I get that, and it's going to. But I think when you've gone this far, and there is some of those things that are doing well, but. I'm more making the point that how badly is the AFL managing a lot of this, and their focus is so on other things, and they are letting their core. They're not even like this. Is the point I was making is they haven't even won over Western Sydney and the Gold Coast, and they're losing Tasmania, and they're talking about India. I mean. And they're talking about China. I mean, it's just mind-boggling to me. And they're talking about launching a new AFLX and all this. And you just look at it and go, guys, like, even if those were all great ideas, like, let's even be fair to them. Let's say they're all good ideas. It's easy to prioritise good ideas. But it's easy to prioritise good ideas over bad ideas because you go, oh, that's a bad idea, we should do it. But when people throw out and have 20 good ideas... It's choosing what are the 5 with your resources and good people and all that who can actually, do you put all that energy into? And at the moment, to me, the AFL is this scattered whatever it is at the moment.
You know what they remind me of? Like that sort of vaudeville act where blokes are spinning plates on sticks and he's got 20 plates going.
Yes.
And one falls off and then the other falls off. By the time he's got down to 3 plates, he's got them going beautifully. And that's what the AFL should be doing.
That's right.
Forget the 20 plates, concentrate on the 3.
That's right. I mean, and they start saying, oh, we're having a, look at the game committee, and they start throwing out things like there could be radical changes and that. And you're just like, God, like, seriously, like, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing?
There'll be a committee looking into the results of this committee in 6 months' time.
Oh, it just... They really do my head in. You can tell. I'm just talking while the Suns are obviously in a lot of trouble. St Kilda on the weekend were about as bad as you could be. They let the Swans kick 9 goals straight in that opening quarter.
This was my double header of death on Saturday. Firstly, I had the Giants Gold Coast game on, and I was sitting in the house on my own, and I started yelling at the TV, why haven't I even got you switched on? I'm talking to an appliance. And then I left it on, and guess what? Sydney kicked 9 goals to none in the first quarter. Yeah. I'm thinking, now I'm going to watch this just to see how bad St Kilda really are.
That's right. And they started to come back a bit. But
they did. They were
coming off a pretty low base.
They could have lost by 140 points.
Oh, I had someone text me again, this could be a 200-point loss. Like it was looking like...
They had a crack in the second half, but Sydney took their foot off the pedal a bit. But the Saints, they are... You could argue that they're probably in worse shape than Gold Coast because they were talking themselves up, St Kilda, at the end of last year, and they had placed great stocks in their own playing group. Yeah, and it's just been proven,
It's one of the first ones in a while where you look at it, and I think Hardwick was kind of an interesting one because the calls to sack Hardwick were so big, but they'd never really bottomed out like St Kilda had. They were always just thereabouts and would lose finals and things like that.
Same with Collingwood.
And I was about to say, same with Buckley, right? So now with Buckley, everyone was a little less like, he should be sacked immediately because they're a bit like, remember what happened with Hardwick. So they're a bit gun-shy. But under both of those guys, I never remembered them, or they never did, bottom out like St Kilda are now. And that's where I feel like for the first time in a little while, Richardson's under true... This guy could be sacked any week.
Under the pump.
Like it is, like in a way that Buckley and Hardwick never were. Because what would happen with Buckley is just as he was about to look like this could be it, he'd win one.
Exactly.
But Richardson, they've won one this year. They haven't looked really that close since. They've had a couple of weeks of improvement for this week, but then. Those 9 goals were the easiest 9 goals I've ever seen. Almost anyone.
Well, I tell you what.
It was just training drills.
Last Tuesday night, after we'd recorded the podcast, I was at the St Kilda, the RESEA Centre Tuesday night.
Right.
And it was sort of a bit of a wander around upstairs. And
you're just wandering around?
It's easy to get into.
But why were you there?
They were
asking you to try out.
It was a junior footy thing.
Right.
And walked past Alan Richardson's office, and a big flash-looking office, I've got to say.
Right.
But he was lying back in his chair with his feet up on the desk, doing something on his phone. And one of the guys walked past and goes, I hope he's playing Fortnite. What else is he going to be doing? And then we walked through to the players' lounge, and there's Simon Lethlean sitting there, tapping away on his phone. I thought, geez, they just don't look like they're going anywhere, this mob. They really are struggling.
Well, I mean, I thought the minute they hired Simon Lethlean sent a signal of where they're thinking at. That was always weird.
They've got a nice gym, though.
Well, that's the main thing. They're obviously not using it. The one thing this all sets up is the fact that the Saints will take on the Suns this week. And John Robb wrote in...
And that's at Metricon, isn't it? Yeah, I think it is, yeah.
And John Robb wrote in, should the winner of next week's Saints v Suns match only get 3 premiership points because neither team is quite AFL standard?
Fair point. Fair question.
I'll tell you what, if the Saints lose up there...
To the Suns. Yeah, just Richo, just pack it up, put your suit on. Put your Mark Robinson.
Stay up there for a holiday because you don't have a job anymore.
Keep the Mark Robinson bald wig on and just go to Byron, kick back for a couple of weeks. Get on the schooners.
Because it's true, isn't it? Like if they lose that,
their history. Not the club's history, but I think Richo's tenure probably is.
Yeah, Blake Reynolds wrote, should next week's game between Gold Coast and St Kilda be played behind closed doors for the good of the game? I tell you what, the look of the game committee might need a look at that.
Can you imagine playing a game behind closed doors? We are actually keeping spectators out for their own good and for the good of the game.
It is going to be a shocker.
Oh, yeah, it won't be. Having said that, it could end up being one of those where both teams have got their backs to the wall. They come out all guns blazing, and it turns in. It won't be a high standard match.
Do you like how I say it's a shocker? Yet I know I'll watch it.
Yeah, I won't turn it
You
off.
and I will be watching it. Because it's always like, you know a car crash is about to happen.
Yeah.
Hang on, I just want to see.
Get your phone out as you go past.
So it should be interesting, but seriously, you're going to be absolutely amazing. One of the things that happened, North Melbourne went down to Geelong on the weekend and they lost. They were sort of... Did you watch this one?
No, I didn't see much of this one.
So North were sort of... Geelong were very good, and they always are at home to an extent, but North were... I would describe they're just okay. They just didn't seem to be.
North looked to me
a bit
like
flat. They seem to be flat.
They played really well for the last 4 or 5
above
games,
and beyond,
and they fell off the wagon a bit.
Yeah. So the thing about Geelong gets me every single year is we all fall in this thing going they're not that good.
Yeah.
And then you look, and I did this before this game. I remember when I was writing the preview for it, I looked and I go, I think they were 5th. Now they're 4th.
Yeah.
I was like, so they're not even that. Like, I wish my team could be not that good. And still be
sitting fourth
or whatever. Like, that's sort of how I feel about Geelong at the moment. Like, they're just slowly getting it together.
And they always seem to find a player or two every year, Geelong.
Yeah.
Not your big, not your Dangerfield or your Gary Ablett come in, but your blokes like your Tom Stewarts and even Menzel, who they hasn't played for a few weeks, so they tried to get rid of him last year. All of a sudden they find a couple of blokes who just slot in beautifully.
Well, Ablett just shows that, everyone... There's 2 things I thought were quite funny. One was with the Brisbane game with people saying, Luke Hodge should have, a few months ago, saying he should really retire and be coaching from the stands. Yeah. And you're like, he's probably took out Dyson Airport and he's been...
He did that beautifully when he took out Dyson Airport.
It was legal because it was Luke Hodge.
Yeah.
In fairness, I don't know if he could have done much better, but to an extent, it wasn't a complete... I thought they let him off pretty quickly for what I thought it was more borderline.
And you watch.
I can see why it might be clear, but I thought it was more borderline than
there was another Essendon player on the ground who wanted to have a go, and Hodgie, he was about to give him one and pulled his hand back. Decided not to.
So it's funny because Hodge was like done, and then Ablett was done.
Yeah.
And then Ablett had 34 possessions, 16 of them contested, kicked a goal.
Yeah. It was your classic Gary Ablett, 3 bounces through the middle and slotting it from the 50.
Yeah, so the whole thing was just, so they're starting to look good. But one of the interesting things is at one point Jack Zeeble ran over the boundary line and sort of just ran in, not crazily hard, but just into the LED signage that goes around the boundary. Yeah. And it cut his knees, sliced open, he said, his knees quite a bit because there's new signs. Now, it's interesting because this has happened at Perth to 2 Geelong players at the new Perth Stadium because
you talk about the AFL doing your head in. This is the sort of thing that does my head in with the AFL. How does this happen?
Exactly. Well, they used to let them play at ANZ Stadium where there was exposed bolts. Remember that?
There was Jared Roughhead. He got scraped with those bolts.
And they had a few. And then the whole Etihad Stadium around the boundary. This is the thing. Exactly. Once you know it's happening at Perth Stadium, wouldn't you look at every other stadium and go, have we got the repeats of this? Although I was saying today, I like the idea of dangerous objects being placed around the boundary to encourage corridor play. That's one thing you could do to fix the look of the game.
Would it ease congestion, though?
No one goes near the boundary.
Spikes coming out of the fence like in Gladiator.
I think that's what we need to look at here.
Put the umpires in chariots with knives coming out of the wheels.
And release, like Brisbane want to have that live lion come out. Release that in the middle of the game.
Exactly. You wouldn't be touching
Someone tag the lion.
You wouldn't be touching up umpires unnecessarily if they were armed.
Exactly. You're spot on. So he sliced himself up here and he said, I actually went into the fence, unfortunately. It sliced me open quite a bit. Quite a bit, to tell you the truth. I thought they fixed the problem, which is kind of a bit of a dig because,
Because it happened.
It happened at Perth twice. It happened at both Zach Tui, I remember, got done, and he had 3 stitches.
Maybe his Geelong players just aren't.
Well, it's an interesting way of taking it.
Their knees just aren't
No, well, Zeebel's from North, and he went off for quite some time too while that all got fixed up.
But again, I would say, they've been in for a couple of years, these LEDs.
I don't think they've all had them right round the boundary on that level. Like,
I know at MCG, I think they just brought them in the first level the first year. But surely when you put them in, you go, tell you what, you wouldn't want to run into this because, there's on every panel there's hundreds.
I don't know. The guy whose job that is running AFL India.
or surely you'd have a look and go, tell you what we'll do. We'll just cover them all up with clear perspex. It won't affect how they're seen. Right.
I actually find some of that LED signage. This makes me sound like a really old man.
No, I know what you're going to say.
But when it pings around fast and all that, like when it changes just every now and then to another thing, or when the play's stopped, it does something. I actually find it sometimes worse at the ground.
Well, I'm glad you said that because yesterday it was during the last quarter, so it was fairly dark. All the MCG lights had been on for most of the afternoon anyway. The ball was sort of 100 metres away down the opposite pocket, but the LED screens at ground level started flashing and turning over in this bright red colour.
Yeah.
I don't know what it was advertising, but you could not see the ball, and the Melbourne play, everything was just sort of blurring into this screen. It's not so bad if it's a dark colour or it's green or it's not moving that quickly, but when it's like it's like flashing lights at a disco.
Yeah,
I would red, and you think I can't see what's going on the field.
I prefer if during play it's not allowed to move.
Yeah, I'd be happy with that.
In quarters or breaks or whatever, like or after goals.
Yeah, go nuts.
Nuts. Make it all like I get the appeal of it. I'm not like, but for the rest of the time, I'm just
during play. Why don't they just put up? You know what I'd like to see while the game's being played on the entire. At ground level, screens should just be white picket fence. You could do that. You could easily do that. And it would look a lot better. And as you say, when a goal is kicked, bang, go nuts.
Yeah. No, I don't even mind. I mean, I know that they're going to have the advertising. I know they're going to have the advertising, right? So fine. But if you're going to flick to another ad or a moving ad, do it in breaks.
Yeah.
Or, wait. Like, it's not that hard. Like, that's the flexibility of the whole thing. Anyway, one of the things I just couldn't believe over the weekend, I should say I just can totally believe it.
Yeah, there was a lot like this.
David Warner's been hired by the Nine Network to do commentary during the one-day series in England. I
found this the most believable thing of the entire weekend.
Yeah, probably. So this is after he's been suspended for cheating and being the mastermind and culturally the person that's it's Dave Warner. I would suggest you withdraw that word mastermind. I know. But that's the thing about this, right? You look at it and go, what signal does this send?
But what happened to the suspensions? They're all playing cricket in about 8 different leagues at the moment, aren't they?
Look, to me, this is got precedence too, because remember when Warne got done for the taking the drug and was banned,
the diuretic pill.
Channel 9 straight away hired him as a commentator.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, it's like hiring, Lance Armstrong to commentate the Tour de France. Like, you don't go, you're banned. It does taint you. You can't just say it doesn't. And this is the opposite. And Warner was blatant and obvious. He made Bancroft, put the pressure on Bancroft to do it. So, he stuffed up. He fell out with Smith like he was a cancer at the heart of the team.
This just shows the pure the lack of understanding of your audience, of the feeling of the people, everything by Channel 9 and TV executives in general. Channel 7 are just as bad.
But we're at Cricket Australia on this. I mean, I know Sutherland's announced he's leaving in 12 months.
James's
farewell
tour.
But this is where I have a problem with it. So some people say, he's allowed to earn money and all that. I'm like, yeah, of course he is, but he's hardly struggling, right? So I'm not really that worried about that. And he can go work in a pub, really, if he wants to. Yeah. It's not like we're saying can't have every job.
Yeah.
But when they talk about culture, Cricket Australia, when you go back to when Mark Waugh and Shane Warne were caught taking money from an Indian bookmaker, not only did they get a very light fine, Cricket Australia covered it up.
Yeah.
Remember?
Yeah.
It took years for it to finally be revealed in a all-clear-winning story by the media. They then got slaps on the wrist because it had been done, so they still played and everything. So that sent a message, if you get caught, it won't be the end of the world for you. Mark Waugh ends up, and after taking money from a bookie, Warren goes on to a media career, has the drug thing, still goes on to a media career, and is like, Waugh goes on to be a national selector.
Yeah.
So the whole signal this is sending is these actions don't really have consequences of any nature. It does not stop you being able to go on and be... And so Waugh becomes a highly paid commentator and a national selector.
Yeah.
Warren's gone on to,
multi-media career.
You know. And so then they will turn around and go, I wonder why the culture's so bad.
Yeah, exactly.
So then here they have another chance to say, we are not going to do this. And what do? Channel 9 straight away goes, yeah, we'll hire you. And Cricket Australia don't say we're against this.
They won't say boo. Yeah, I mean, in Cricket Australia, have, as I say, not so much Bancroft, but Warner and Steve Smith, they are still playing cricket.
Yeah,
I mean, I would have thought 12 months. It's like, a different sport, but in the AFL, if you get rubbed out for 12 months playing in the AFL, you can't play for any footy team.
Yeah, that's right.
That's it. Your footy career is over till next season.
Yeah.
And you would think in this circumstance that would be the same.
Yeah.
With the cricket, no, they can play in the Canadian League. They can play here. They can play for that mob. They can play, county cricket in.
Yeah.
But what's a suspension?
Yeah.
And then you got some pickle from Channel 9 saying Dave's the best one-day and T20 batsman of the past decade. So he's perfectly placed to join our coverage. Completely.
Well, this is the one I like. He said, people have tried to paint Dave as the villain in all this, but he's been hurting as much as the others. He just wants to atone for his mistake and move on. I hope Australia gives all of them a chance. Now, my thing here, right, is David Warner has been painted as a villain because he is the villain.
He's the villain.
Cricket Australia's own report into this, he was found guilty and charged with more things than anyone else. Like he hasn't been painted as the villain. He is the villain.
Yeah.
So, we're not crazy. Like this, they make out like sports fans are idiots and we're crazily just being mean for no reason. Like we didn't do this. He did this. And you know what? When these things happen, actions have consequences. And just because you feel bad because your terrible choices have resulted in something bad happening, just because you feel bad isn't the punishment.
Yeah.
That is not the punishment. Like, it might be a level of you've shown some remorse, so therefore that, might count towards a slightly lesser sentence or something than someone who's not. But it not on its own makes everyone go, oh, I didn't realise you felt bad.
Yeah.
You felt, fine. I didn't realise you felt bad about the decision you made.
And this is where people and like sporting followers and TV viewers and all that they lose faith in the whole system, and it was Cricket Australia, whatever, because as you say, your bad behaviour has consequences. They look at this and they go, your bad behaviour doesn't actually have that many consequences.
Yeah, it
does for a couple of weeks, and then away you go.
Yeah.
See, and this is a lack of leadership by Cricket Australia here. Surely it would have been smart for James Sutherland to pick up the phone, ring Tom Malone from Channel 9 and said to him, hey, don't hire Dave Warner for the
this is not what we want.
It's a bad look for us. It's a bad look for you.
Yeah.
And I reckon...
But why would you expect Sutherland to be any different? I mean, I know you don't, but he's been... the idea that he's removed from the culture problems there...
They don't see how they're portrayed or the big picture.
But they also don't care.
Yeah.
This is the thing. They don't actually really care because they all fall into this thing like we talked about with Demetrio and Fitzpatrick where the money is flowing in because of things nothing to do with them. And then they go... Well, I'm a genius here, and you're like, well, actually, like these are that you've just had your national team hand in one of the most embarrassing moments in the history of Australian sport, and you're acting like it's no big deal or you've done a great job. You've allowed that. The minute they put David Warner as vice captain, they were all culpable.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't with hindsight, you're going, gee, Dave Warne turned out to be a bit of a bad choice.
Yeah.
Everyone knew.
You knew.
Everyone knew when he got made. Was just every sports fan I talked to was like,
this is going to end in tears.
Yeah. How do you?
Something's going to blow up.
Yeah. How do you put him in charge? Like, it is just mind blowing to me.
And it's like you say, it all comes back to the money. Everyone, I mean, like James Sutherland might be the best bloke in the world. I don't know, but every one of them are now acting like they invented 2020 cricket.
Yes.
Oh, he was responsible for the Big Bash League. Well, I don't think he was the first one to say, why don't we have a game of 40 overs in length,
Yeah.
It just didn't happen that way. But whenever money flows in, everyone's putting their hand up.
I'm not saying like for it. The whole thing's been like everything they've done is terrible, but this has been a pretty poor thing, and letting this happen is just an extra thing. But it's just not surprising, and it's why everyone's thrilled Channel 9 are losing the cricket rights. And you look at the new team that Seven, to their credit, are building. Yeah. You go, this is going to be a much better commentary team. So. I mean, you wish the same would happen in reverse with footy. Because Channel 7, while they seem to be building a good cricket commentary team, are giving us one of the worst
do you think Channel 9 will use Dave Warner as a tennis commentator when they do the Australian Open?
Imagine. There was an interesting thing in the Champions League on the weekend that I just liked, which was Besa Kartas, who I think are Turkish, but someone can jump in and tell me I'm wrong. They were playing Bayern Munich. It was all the way back in March, the actual game, but the fine finally came through. A cat ran onto the ground, and because of that, they've been fined $40,000 for the match being halted and for not running it.
Was it their cat? Was it their fault?
I think so. So a cat ran on, and they basically it just not panically just trotted out into the middle of the pitch during the second half.
I don't mind a fine over there.
So they've just whacked them with 40 grand
per cat.
Yeah, and said, they haven't run a good enough venue. So if you want your opponent to be, how they reacted when was it the Saints supporters smuggled the pig into the SCG?
Yeah. So was this the security's fault?
I think there was actually concerns about the whole venue a bit, but this was sort of the one where the cat wanders out, and the fine was for $40,000.
But I saw the footage. Didn't the cat have accreditation around his neck?
The Canadian Grand Prix ran on the weekend. Sebastian Vettel won, and like all Grand Prix now, it's really just watching traffic.
Whoever starts in the front wins, basically.
You've got to watch. I've tried to get back
like harness racing.
Do you know what? I used to not mind Formula One, but a few times this season I've tried to watch a race just to get mildly back into it or something, and just been like, I cannot be bothered. But one of the things that was funny is a model, Winnie Harlow, was waving the checkered flag, and not her fault, but she was told to wave it, and it turned out it was a lap early.
Is this why they got rid of grid girls?
Apparently it was not her, so there had to be this big thing because everyone accused her of doing it. She's like, no, I just got told.
So she's wandered out into the track with the big black and white.
She was sort of up on the, not a podium, a stand, like waving it. And so Vettel's radioing going, why are they waving the checkered flag and it's not over? But they declared the race at that point. It wasn't.
So did he keep going for the extra lap?
No, it was like 59 out of 60 laps, I think, and they called it. So I tell you what, I wish that had happened yesterday. I wouldn't have minded that match ending a fair bit earlier.
Time,
We got a couple of listeners' questions come in. Grant Jenkins said, is Fagan already foxing with selection news with reference to his alleged hamstring injury ahead of Lions round 14 blockbuster against the Giants? You think that's what he's doing?
Well, possibly, but I think we can take away alleged now. I think that's a fair dinkum hamstring injury. Not that it's going to affect the Lions, but...
You never know.
No, not up there, I guess.
God, there's some terrible games coming up. Brian Haynes wrote in, I think this is an important question. If you've used Uber Eats to get McDonald's, does it mean you're human garbage?
Human garbage? You got a bit of self-hatred going on there, Brian.
You kind of read that question and go, I reckon he's done it.
Yeah.
Or, I mean, he could be a massive food snob. Yeah. But in all honesty, when you start referring to someone like that, usually you've done it.
Yeah. So you rung Uber Eats to pick yourself up a McHappy meal and a couple of cheese quarter pounders.
Actually, that's not a bad idea.
A couple of quarter pounders, vanilla shake.
Just might get my app, open my app. Yeah, because really, what else are you... I think he's saying, you got all these other options.
Yeah.
But still...
Why choose the cheapest and nastiest?
Because sometimes you just want Maccas.
Well, you do. Not often, mind.
There's all different things in life that you sometimes want.
Sunday mornings, driving to golf, sausage and egg McMuffin.
Right, that's your...
Yeah, that's possibly the one time.
I just like... human garbage is a great a great phrase.
I was about to say it's a very harsh phrase for this sort of thing, I'd generally keep that sort of description to the sort of bloke who'd release a cat onto a soccer field.
Or hi David Warner.
Yeah, hi David Warner as a commentator.
Can you imagine also when they announced that David Warner thing? The best thing about it too is all these other ex-cricketers sitting around who've never done anything and are perfectly good at commentating going, really? Yeah. This is...
So that's it, is it?
That's it. Yeah, he gets ahead of me. And the guy can barely form sentences. That's the other thing. It's not like you go, geez, a bit controversial, but what talent he is.
But yeah, it'll be worth listening to. Oh, the lack of self-awareness by Channel 9 and Cricket Australia is just astounding.
Self-awareness in sport is a...
And the media in general.
It's a very rare commodity.
It is. Indeed.
It is amazing how much they don't go for that. We're going to get a T-shirt away.
What do you reckon this week? I've picked the last couple.
I like Matt Conahan's one about Honorary D's fan.
Yeah, good question.
I did like Dan Taylor's, no question. I just can't wait to see how bitter you are.
Yeah.
Just mainly because if I wasn't in the situation I'm in, I would feel the same as him.
Yeah, that is true.
But to answer that, Dan, I am so bitter. And I don't know if I'm ever going to be all right. But, that's just normal.
That's
not new.
Supporter. Yeah.
Oh, we'll see you later in the week. Thanks, everyone.